Great. So my name's Benoit Wers, or Ben, depending on what country I'm in. The panel today is really about kind of the frontier of EdTech. I run a fund called Bright Eye Ventures, which is based in Europe and where we invest in early stage EdTech companies. And our view of EdTech is there's basically two kinds of EdTech companies. One, a group of companies are trying to help existing institutions to get better. So things like better software for schools, better software for universities, better software for learning inside of corporations. And the other group of companies is going right around directly to students and saying, we're not going to wait for universities to change. We're not going to wait for traditional institutions to change. We're going to give people what they need right now. And so what I'm excited about today is that we have 3 companies that are doing that, that are taking that second route and really trying to, really already doing a lot of disruption in the education field in different aspects. And I'm going to give each of the panelists here the opportunity to just talk briefly about who they are and what their company does, and then we'll get right into it. So, Gonzalo, since you're the last one here,
okay.
you get to start.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, I'm the co-founder at IronHack. What we do basically is teach anyone without prior knowledge to code, to do UX, UI, or data analytics in a very short amount of time, so 9 weeks, and then get them jobs. So basically transform their career through in-person immersive programs. We're based in, right now, 8 cities, mainly in Europe and LATAM, expanding to a bunch more, hopefully, within the next couple of years, targeting around 20.
Okay, great. And yeah?
So, Ornicar is an...
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I go?
Let's go.
I heard yeah. So, Ornicar is an online driving school. It starts with a very simple idea. Driving schools are expensive, and they're not very flexible. They're not very innovative. So this idea came from 2 young French entrepreneurs. They said, let's do something about that. Let's create a driving school that is flexible, that uses software and data science to give a better experience. So for the theoretical part of the exam, they have a very cool e-learning tool in which it is gamified, very cool user experience, very flexible, in which the student actually wants to learn how to drive, which is not always the case in the driving school. It's a bit boring. And for the practical part, the real innovation is that we put students directly in contact with instructors. We don't go through a driving school. The instructors are not hired by a driving school. We put them directly in contact, just like in other companies like Uber or things similar. And we make everything more flexible. And above all, and this is important for young adults, we make it very much cheaper. And so we believe we have the online driving school of the future, basically.
Cool. Good morning. So my name is Pierre. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Open Classrooms, which is an online education platform. We train about 3 million students a month in 130 different countries on tomorrow's competencies and tomorrow's jobs. So we create and deliver programs, fully online programs leading to academic degrees and jobs. So we actually are a state-endorsed degree awarding higher education institution. We deliver bachelor's, master's, and associate degrees with the job guarantee. So that means if you don't find a job within 6 months, we're going to refund your tuition fees. We work mostly on digital jobs and jobs impacted by technology like HR, marketing, finance, etc. We raised $70 million led by a US firm called General Atlantic. We're about 150 employees and also 1,000 faculty teachers.
Great. Okay, and I should disclose just briefly that Bright Eye is an investor in Ornicar, so we're going to treat Miguel very nicely.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to focus a little bit on kind of the drivers of growth, right? So I think broadly speaking, most people understand, particularly for Miguel, for Pierre and for Gonzalo, that there's a demand for technical skills, and that demand is greater than traditional universities can meet. And I think there's an ongoing demand for people also to learn how to drive. But would love to understand better what you guys see as the key drivers of growth for you, and maybe we'll start with Pierre, and then go from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say 2 things. The first one is the skills gap, so the talent shortage, as you said. So as you probably heard, a third of the workforce will be impacted by technology in the next 12 years. So a third of the jobs will need digital jobs in the next 12 years. So that means we need to reskill 1 billion people in the next 12 years.
Yeah.
universities can do that, so you need a new model. So you have, unemployed people, job seekers, and on the other hand, employers not finding talent on digital jobs, especially. So that's the first point. The second point is really around regulation, compliance, accreditation, etc. This is changing. So 10 years ago, in many countries, it was not possible to have online degrees, for example, or new kind of pedagogies, shorter programs, more competency-based, project-driven, leading to jobs. This is now possible, not in every single country, but this is possible in the UK, in France, in Spain now. In the US, it's still sometimes possible, sometimes not. It's complex, but things are changing on a regulatory perspective. So all of that combined is a huge opportunity for new, innovative pedagogical models.
I got it. And Gonzalo, is that what you're finding as well?
Yeah. So I'd say the main driver for Pierre, for me, and for many other companies is tech skill gap.
Right.
So that's kind of what at least got us into this.
Yeah.
And really, really excited. Then there's two. We look at, let's say, accreditation maybe from another perspective. So we think it's not that relevant anymore for many people and companies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of big companies that are starting to hire many professionals without the necessity to demonstrate that they had an official degree.
Right.
So for us, that's great, right? So we just get them, teach them the necessary skills to go and get a job and then place them.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then another very, very important driver also for us is job dissatisfaction.
Right.
So less and more so are the so-called millennials and the next generations unhappy in their, let's say, traditional job in the traditional company, and really excited about new opportunities in tech, right? So we help them get a job real quick.
Just and I'm going to get to Onikar in a second, but just to follow up on this, do most of your students have degrees already?
So depends on the country.
Yeah.
In France, I think everybody has a degree, even master's degree or maybe a couple.
Yeah.
But we are really targeting the base of the pyramid.
Yeah.
We see ourselves as the entry level to the middle class.
Okay. And it's not necessary you guys are not awarding degrees, right?
We're not awarding degrees.
Yeah, and it's not necessary to have a degree to get employment at the end of the day.
Yeah, so at the beginning it was kind of tough for us to get our students in front of, let's say, the right companies.
Right.
But right now, as we're building a better and better brand, they're just coming and taking it out from their requirements.
Got it. And yeah, you guys are awarding degrees, right? Or
yes.
Yeah. And what percentage of people actually get the degree versus just take the class? Yeah.
So we have certificate programs and degree programs. You can take just a couple of courses and just find a job directly, depending where you start from.
Right.
But on degree programs and apprenticeship programs, the completion rate can be up to 99%.
Oh, okay.
So it can be really good.
Okay.
Especially with apprenticeship programs. Apprenticeship programs are basically that you've got a job from day one, because you're pre-hired by an employer, by a company like Google, Capgemini, Accenture, or others. Right. Those employers are desperately seeking talented digital jobs, so they are willing to hire data scientists, UX designers, developers from day one.
Right.
When you have a work contract, when you have a salary, tuition fees are covered by the employer.
Yeah.
In this program, the completion rate is amazing. So it's hard to compare that kind of program with MOOCs, massive open online courses, just online course that is for free. You click, you're in. In those programs, it's more 15% completion rate, but it's not very comparable, I'd say.
Okay. Great. And Miguel, obviously, with the driving license, the point is the license, right? So you have to get that degree.
There is a degree, and that degree is obviously delivered by the state. So this is a very specific degree, very specific skill set.
Right.
But the growth factor here, which is interesting for us, is the sheer size of that market.
Right.
Everybody, or almost everybody, in the past passed their driving license. We'll see if in the future it happens still, but at least we have entire populations of 18-year-olds every year who want that license.
Right.
So the growth factor for us is the sheer opportunity and the sheer size of the market, and the fact that it's serviced by very traditional institutions who are not very innovative.
Right.
They don't scale. Driving schools usually don't scale, or they scale at a very local level, and this is a huge opportunity for us.
Right.
The second growth factor is the fact that millennials or Gen Y or Z today, they expect every product or service or degree to come through a very digital experience, to come through an app, to come through a software e-learning tool. They expect that because they already have it in other parts of their life. And so we want to be up there with other products such as Uber, Netflix, Airbnb, you name it, in terms of the experience.
Yeah.
And this is something that never happened. The driving school was always very traditional and always very physical, and we're making it soft and digital. This is the huge opportunity for a population that only expects that through a smartphone.
Right, and the core part, and maybe we can, I'll shift this back around, but I think the core part of what OmniCal is doing is really, they've managed to, on the one hand, pay instructors as much or more than they were making before,
Obviously.
and then really dramatically reduce the cost for students, right?
In terms of the business model, we have, in my opinion, cracked the main problem of the driving schools is that they were not profitable. They can't scale. They have huge costs, especially fixed costs. The driving school is a physical place with a lot of costs and cars. And we've cracked that by creating a platform in which the driver and the car are the only parts of the education. There's not a physical place where you go. There's not this very old-fashioned TV sets or DVD sets where you learn these things. It's on the one hand a software or an e-learning tool, and the other hand it's a platform where the independent driver signs himself up and connects directly with students.
Right, and so just, again, I know this story pretty well because we're investors, but I think the interesting thing from an investor's perspective is when OmniCal started, the regulations didn't allow actually for what you guys are now doing. Investors were willing to take the bet, which is kind of amazing before the laws changed, and then OmniCal and others helped to change the laws, which I think is obviously always a great opportunity. And now you're expanding to new markets in Spain.
Exactly, and these markets are still very highly regulated.
Yeah.
This is a thing that probably won't change,
Right.
but we will play into that regulation and obviously play by the rules because we believe this is a very good product for everyone. And
Right.
even if the traditional driving schools see us maybe as a disruptor, we'll see, okay, we also are a driving school because
Right.
we will respect that regulation.
Right. So we'd just love to hear maybe Piel, your experience as you started off, and you started this when you were 13, 11, which
11, yeah.
11. Okay, so you were the younger one. So 11 years old in France, and obviously you built the market primarily first in France, and now you've expanded quite a bit. We'd just love to hear about your experience, kind of going into new markets.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that's a long story indeed,
Yeah.
almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
5 years really as a commercial company, a mission-driven company whose mission is to make education accessible. It was more a personal project, middle school, high school, college. And we started on French-speaking countries. We're now in English and Spanish-speaking countries as well. So mainly Europe, Africa, and North America.
Yeah.
We raised $60 million in May, so we're expanding pretty fast right now. We're investing mainly in the Francophone countries, so France and Africa, but also in the UK and the US. We've got students in 100+ different countries right now. We're working on new accreditations in the UK and in the US, so becoming degree awarding institution in the UK and the US. This is a mess.
Yeah.
We have to start again. It takes like years. Usually it takes between 4 to 9 years to become a college in a new country.
Okay.
And sometimes it's actually forbidden right now, and we need to do like a lot of lobbying to make the regulation change. This is what we're doing in Washington right now, in the UK as well. So it's a long process. I mean, education is a slow-moving market, so you need to be here for the long term.
Yeah.
But we also go there and partner with top-notch institutions, so universities and tech companies mostly. Institutions like Stanford in the US, so we co-create and co-design executive master's programs, or Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and so on and so forth.
Got it. And Gonzalo, I know you started here, and then Miami, I think, and Mexico, and now you're in a bunch of places. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about kind of that and how you look at new markets in general. Yeah.
Yeah, so first we started in Madrid back in 2013, and it was kind of an MVP for us.
Right.
So I think Spain is a great place to start a business. It's a middle-sized country with enough room to try things out, low cost, and high, people with purchasing power, right?
Yeah.
So great place to start. From there, we kind of, once it works here, we started thinking about expansion.
Yeah.
And what kind of company we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So the way we looked at it is we started looking at competitive dynamics in the world. We saw that the US was super developed, obviously. in terms of the bootcamp model and in general in the startup as a startup ecosystem. So we love the idea of kind of going to second tier or overlooked markets.
Yeah.
Where we feel comfortable first, so Europe and LATAM, and then we might go Southeast Asia or others.
Oh, really? Okay.
We then took the strategic decision also to go to places, then you need to start looking at different variables.
Yeah.
For us, the most important one is going to places where there's enough jobs for our students. So Paris, let's say Lisbon, Bogota, they're all places with different kind of dynamics in the job market.
Yeah.
Some tech ecosystem are less developed, but then you might have corporates that are starting to hire big time these types of jobs.
Right.
So you need to really dig into the numbers and understand how the dynamics are there in the job market. And that's kind of our main driver, right?
So is the hard part getting the corporations, like the eventual employers on board, or is the hard part recruiting the students, or
the hard part for us in expansion is it's kind of seeing the opportunity for employment, right?
Okay.
Because normally you just see, okay, developers are hired. Where do people see these openings? I don't know, go to a job searching site, but only startups post there, right?
Yeah.
So you're missing out on only corporates posting jobs, and maybe it's tougher to crack and see who is really hiring, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that obvious that maybe in Milan, there's no people, there's no startups at all, maybe, or very little, but maybe there are massive corporations hiring for these types of jobs. So really understanding that dynamic and seeing if you can fit maybe from another angle, right?
Okay.
So it's not going to be maybe the easy plug and play US model where you just go in a city, open a bootcamp, and people are going to flock in.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be very easy for startup to, or they get it, right? They're going to want to hire.
Right.
So it really has a lot more to do to adapting your offering in terms of curriculum and the companies you're targeting, right? And also explaining to the student what your core offering is.
Yeah.
So it's a tougher mix, but we decided to go to capitals first in Europe, LATAM, and then we'll see. We're thinking about the next stage now.
Okay, got it. And just you mentioned Africa is a big market for you guys. Would love to hear more about what is that market like. I mean, what are the challenges there?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in many different countries, in many different markets, the changes on education, higher education, vocational training, the talent shortage, the outcomes are the same. So it's moving online towards like competency-based learning, project-driven pedagogies, etc. But the reasons why it's changing and shifting are different. So in the US, it could be the student loans, like $1.3 trillion on student loans. So it could be that in the US. In Africa, it's really about the demography. So you will have 500 million French speakers in Africa in just like 20 years.
Right.
And it means right now we would need to build 2 universities in Africa every single week. Okay?
Right.
That's not going to work out. So you need to find another new model, like scalable model in Africa to make sure that we can provide a high quality education to this market, to those markets actually, because there's 54 different markets, right? So this is actually what we are trying to achieve. We partner with the ministries of education and labor to teach like job seekers, school dropouts, to partner with local universities as well. So we also partner with telco providers, so like Orange, the AT&T in Africa.
Yeah.
So they include educational programs within their plans. So if you are an Orange client, on your phone you can have access to our courses for free. Even the data is not charged in your plan, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So things like that. There are different things that you need to adapt to address the African market.
Yeah.
But overall, there's a huge need.
Yeah.
The infrastructure in terms of higher education and vocational training is really scarce.
Yeah.
And the competition is actually very scarce as well. So you can go there, but again, it's kind of a long-term strategy. The monetization there is pretty tough.
Yeah.
So you need to be there for a couple of years until you really generate revenue.
Right, you got to wait for the 500 million to show up, and then they're going to be, then it's going to be awesome. All right, great. So just for Onlycal, I mean, we're talking about kind of opening new markets. You're now opening Spain. We're talking also about partnerships and competition, Piao, you mentioned that you were partnering with universities, which is kind of interesting. In France, anyway, there hasn't been a lot of partnerships with the traditional institutions on the driving school side. Would just love to hear more about kind of how you're thinking about the Spanish market and what that
So yes, as you said, we're just beginning now to internationalize.
Yeah.
We started in France and we're opening Spain and Germany.
Yeah.
Obviously, in terms of scaling, this is very specific because the local markets are very, very specific. We're talking about government agencies, very local regulation. We have to localize a lot. So we're opening very specific markets and we're looking now at the Spanish market. In terms of collaboration, well, the player in the market is a very traditional one. It's a driving school. Everybody knows what that is. There are some digital players that are trying to do things. What we want is to be able to offer a full service. Our biggest challenge will be to get to the independent instructors. We're not going to create new ones. These people exist in the market. We need to get to them. And in that point, we may be looking at collaboration with existing players. But at heart, we want to be a purely digital player and a pure challenger, basically.
Okay, got it. So we're going to wrap up. This is the last question for everybody, just so. So make it good, right? Make the answer good. Don't mess it up. Okay, so good. So I mean, usually the best way to wrap up is just to talk about the future and kind of what you're seeing as either core goals or core challenges. And if you want to embed in that what you see happening to kind of traditional universities as a result of what you guys are doing, that would be, or traditional institutions as a result of what you guys are doing, that would be helpful as well. So I'm going to start with Gonzalo, who you got to give Gonzalo a break. He just had his first kid?
No.
Second.
They're thereabouts.
Oh,
First
okay.
one.
Well, first one about a week ago. Well, his wife did, but you know, but he's still, I'm sure, recovering on sleep. But talk about the future.
Yeah. So I think, so traditional institutions, from our point of view, are going to have a tough time going forward, for sure. I mean, there's going to be the top-notch ones who are going to be untouched, I think, still. But there's a big pool of traditional educational institutions that have neglected, from our perspective, no, their compromise. I mean, their how to say.
Yeah, I know what you
their
mean.
promise to students, their promise to students, right, to get them jobs. So for us, it doesn't make sense that there's so many people graduating in Spain, getting degrees that just don't have opportunities in the labor market, right? Yeah. So I think they're going to suffer big time.
Your placement rates, by contrast, are...
Yeah, exactly. So by contrast, so we have amazing placement rates, and it's our, let's say, it's our reason to be, right? Yeah. To connect students with the companies, the right companies, and the right jobs, right? Yeah. So that's what we think. And another massive one, I think, is going to be blended education. Yeah. So somewhere, we were just talking before, Pierre and I, to do something together. So I think blended programs where you are very in touch with companies and offer part of experience online, part in person, part is working in company, part is being education. I think it's going to be massive.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So I would say it's more on the employer side. I think we need to try to make the employers change the way they hire, because they're so used to base their hires on the degree you've got. So you have got a Harvard degree, we're going to hire you, but does he or she have the competencies I need for the job? Yeah. And by the way, what are the competencies that I need for this job? When you start thinking of competencies behind the job titles, then you can get rid of biases and degrees and things like that, and think of more alternative approaches like Ironhack, for example. So I think it's a strong challenge because employers are so used to hire just like bachelor's degree in computer science from tier 1 universities. You need to change that. It's also a matter of diversity and inclusiveness. It will allow other kinds of populations, women or people with no strong academic backgrounds, but they have the competencies to do those jobs. So it's starting to shift with some forward-looking employers, and it's actually a need for them because of the talent shortage. So they realize they need to hire 100 data scientists, and there are only a couple of hundreds new data scientists every year in their country. So even if they hire every one of them, every graduate from, I don't know, IE or other universities, it's not enough. So they need other channels, and they need not to look at just like white male with a Harvard degree. They need to go into new channels, and they need to think about competencies. This is the way they can get rid of biases in their recruitment process.
So just really quickly on that, and I'll let Miguel have the final word, but do you see, I mean, there's things like École 42 in France and Holberton School in the US where they're doing challenge-based admissions processes, right? Where you basically, doesn't matter what you did before, you just kind of use that, what you're doing over a couple of weeks to determine competencies. Do you see any employers moving and stuff like that, or no?
Yes, you've got like IBM working on initiatives like that.
Yeah.
You've got like Capgemini is also very innovative, L'Oreal or other companies, like some large companies. But to be fair, it's only a small amount of employers right now. There are some which does that, but the vast majority of employers right now still require college degrees. And even in the US, in the tech industry, you might think that without a degree, you'll find a job, but actually 60% of job postings in the US as a developer require a bachelor's in computer science. So you can find a job through a bootcamp company, but this is not 100% of the market, and employers need to change that.
Right. Okay, great. And Miguel, let's just have the last word about kind of what you see in the future, either long-term or short-term in terms of...
So maybe first in the short term, obviously, as I said, there's a huge market to conquer, and that is good, but as you mentioned the other day, many people talk to us about this. In the long term, what happens with cars? What happens with learning how to drive? Self-driving cars already exist. It is coming, and we know it.
Right.
What I think on a more personal level is driving will exist. Driving and the road education, road security, all those concepts will not cease to exist, because there will still be roads, there will still be a system of circulation with new forms of mobility, yes, whether it's self-driving cars, bikes, scooters, everything, but there will still be a notion of you're going into the road, there are risks, you can die on the road. Obviously the governments know this, it's a huge public health issue, and we want to be an actor there to bring education, bring concepts such as responsibility, security, and we will, so far we can be the only global or international actor there, because as I said, the markets are very sectorized, localized, and we want to be in that long-term vision where we're not just saying, okay, driving will cease to exist. We want to be a little above that.
Part of that. Great. Okay. Well, I'm a firm believer. All right. So thanks everybody for your time. Thanks you guys for being on the panel.
Thank you.
And look forward to talking to some of you afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.